The intake process can be a very sensitive procedure for pantry clients. It is important to understand the process and the need for confidentiality, privacy, and sensitivity. Volunteers and staff members have the opportunity to help resource for and encourage the individual during the intake process.
When a person enters the pantry, they will sign in and wait for their name or number to be called. Once called, they'll be asked a few questions to verify their food amount that they will be able to receive. It is during this interview and intake process that volunteers and staff members are able to get to know the individual by listening, encouraging, and referring them to other resources that may be needed. This can be a very encouraging time for the client, but for some it might be shameful, so please be perceptive to the client's needs. When talking with the clients, be sensitive by using a conversational tone and attempt to minimize the authoritative feeling of the intake role. Each client wants to be listened to, taken seriously, and treated with respect. If there is a problem, it should be taken care of and the client will be informed of the fix and assured that it won't happen again. During the check-in interview, clients are required to have identification that will be verified when they come into the pantry. Individuals may be concerned about giving their personal information out to a volunteer or staff member. If this is the case, please treat the client with sensitivity and assure them of confidentiality. First-time pantry visitors often do not know what kind of identification to bring or do not know which pantry is their neighborhood pantry. Thus, for first-time clients, there's a grace period for service. If the first-time client does not live within the boundaries of that pantry, the interview volunteer staff will direct them to the pantry closer to the client's neighborhood. After the first food visit, the pantry will inform the client of the identification requirements for their next visit. These consist of at least a photo ID, proof of current address, and proof of all living in the household. Subsequent pantry visits require verification of this personal information. If an individual returns for subsequent visits but does not bring the adequate follow-up identification, refer to your pantry director for assistance. After identification is verified, the volunteer staff member may instruct the client in the next steps of receiving food. The client information is then entered into a database. As an intake volunteer staff member, remember to greet the clients when they enter the pantry and help the client to sign in. The client will then wait to complete the check-in process. Once the client has been interviewed briefly and had identification verified by the volunteer staff, they will move on to their shopping. An intake volunteer must become familiar with their pantry sign-in and check-in process and must be conscientious in a friendly, hospitable, and gracious towards all who enter the building.